So, this morning I'm going to have a look at this question: how does Oscar Wilde use humour for various purposes in his play, The Importance of Being Earnest? For this question, we will have to look at Wilde's authorial choices, his comedic techniques. We'll have to look at his characters, his language, and we'll have to think of the various purposes that he's using humour for. So, in the play, the humour is not just to entertain. It does entertain. It's a very funny play. But he also uses it for more serious purposes. For instance, he uses it to satirize elements of his society. He's writing in the Victorian era. The play is from 1891, early 1891, so it's fin de siècle. It's 1890s. It's Victorian England. It's what some critics would call a very repressed era with very rigid morals and values. And what he's doing is he's satirizing the absurdities and hypocrisies and superficialities of especially upper class English society at the time. How does he do it? Well, Wilde has a multitude of techniques or strategies. And some of these include the play revolves around this pun, of course, of being earnest. And the characters, specifically Jack and Algernon, the two male protagonists, delight in not being earnest, but in adopting a mask of earnestness, while simultaneously getting out of more serious social or moral obligations. Now, it's not just puns he uses, but the play is peppered with epigrams, these funny one-liners that sound very intelligent and often invert common, ordinary, everyday wisdom. Inversion is another technique in which he turns conventional ideas on its head. Okay. What else? He uses plenty of ironies. He uses elements of farce, low comedy. He uses stock characters and basically delights in drawing caricatures of recognizable figures from the era. So he's not just using comedic elements to entertain, it's also for more serious purposes. So the play is satirical in nature, it's also critical in many ways. It's questioning, subversive. Okay, so there's some serious purposes here. In a way, he holds up his society to a mirror. It's one of those mirrors that exaggerates certain features, certain recognizable features, and it's for the purpose of mocking these recognizable features. So, we'll start off with his use one of the ways is through his expert use of the epigram. Wilde is famous for his epigrams, these very short sayings, these sentences that sparkle with wit and intelligence. His characters, they often speak in a certain sharp but memorable way. This kind of way was how Oscar Wilde himself used to speak memorably at dinner parties. And these quotations that Wilde said were collected, and they were spread throughout London society, and they gave a lot of people a lot of laughs, but they also revealed a lot about the assumptions or absurd logic at the heart of Victorian society. So, just to have a look at some of these epigrams, so we'll go to one here. This is early in Act 1, and Algernon often speaks in these epigrams. A man who marries without knowing Bunbury has a very tedious time of it. A very tedious time of marriage. Now, Bunburying means getting out of one's obligations or one's duties. So, and Bunbury itself is a fiction. So here, what Algernon is saying is that a man who does not have pretense, who doesn't wear a mask, who doesn't lead a life of deception, will have a very tedious time. He will have no way out of his responsibilities and duties. For Wilde, he delighted in pleasure, in leisure, and he mocks these more serious elements of life, especially moralism and duty. These were to be mocked and satirized. So, just down here, continuing on again, Algernon says, "You don't seem to realize, Jack, that in a married life, 3 is company and 2 is none." So this is a perfect example of an epigram. A short saying, it's very memorable and quotable. In married life, 3 is company and 2 is none. And what Wilde is doing here is he's inverting a common idiom or saying, that in married life, 2 is company and 3 is none. This is immediately surprising, and through the contradiction, through the inversion here, it startles the audience and makes them laugh. Now, Algernon is reveling in and delighting in this, in getting out of moral duties and responsibilities. He delights in breaking rules and in not following conventional morality. He's a decadent kind of figure, and he's satirical in nature. His sayings poke fun at, well, in this case, Victorian marriage, this institution, suggesting its shortcomings, suggesting its limitations. Now, actually, also another line here, earlier on in the play, which prefigures Algernon's epigrams. Here we have Wilde satirizing marriage from the off. Jack has come to London, to propose to Gwendolen. This introduces the theme of marriage at the heart of comedies. Algernon says, "I thought you'd come up for pleasure. I call that business." And immediately this would be funny to the audience. It's making a joke at the serious nature of marriage in Victorian society and how often it was tied to economics. One married for wealth. This is still a time of arranged marriages. We can go later. There's plenty of epigrams. Again here, Algernon, all women become like their mothers. That is their tragedy. No man does. That's his. So, in a way, this is getting us to look at gender roles. And in a way, he's being critical here of gender roles. No man becomes like their mothers. That's a man's tragedy. They don't become, I don't know, softer, more empathetic, more caring. There's a serious point that Wilde is making here. Women should learn how to be themselves, be authentic, and not just follow in the footsteps of conventions and traditions. Now, in the interview scene between Lady Bracknell and Jack, there's lots of funny one-liners, epigrams. For instance, here, Lady Bracknell says to Jack, to lose one parent, Mr. Worthing, may be regarded as a misfortune. To lose both looks like carelessness. This is very funny. It's in a way shocking and surprising to the audience, because Lady Bracknell is totally heartless, callow. She lacks empathy. What she's doing here is she's reducing personal tragedy to a social embarrassment, a carelessness. So the comedy, I guess, here really arises from just the lack of empathy as depicted from Lady Bracknell. And the contrast really between the serious subject matter, she's talking about the death of Mr. Worthing's parents, and just her flippant and casual tone, and how she is revealing her values to be shallow and detached from reality. So Wilde's use of epigrams here, on one hand they're funny and entertaining, they sound intelligent, they sound elegant, especially when spoken by Algernon, yet they reveal something about the values or lack of values of this class of people, the absurdity, shallowness, and hypocrisy of the age. Now, throughout the play, another key comic element, which is kind of foreshadowed here by the subtitle, is just Wilde's ability to treat trivial matters as if they're deeply important for the characters, and then to treat serious matters such as marriage as silly or trivial. So he inverts what is thought of as serious and treats it as being absurd, and treats that which is absurd as comic. Throughout the play, we see this from the off. Algernon speaking about cucumber sandwiches at the very beginning of the play. He refers to it as the science of life. So, and later he will behave as if the lack of cucumber sandwiches is a sort of crisis. He himself, of course, has eaten them all. At the same time, more serious matters such as marriage or engagements, in this case, are treated as in a highly comic manner. So here's Lady Bracknell again speaking and saying, an engagement should come on a young girl as a surprise. Pleasant or unpleasant as the case may be, it is hardly a matter that she could be allowed to arrange for herself. This here is a joke for audiences about how it really was a business matter, often arranged by one's parents or by one's social obligations. One used to marry because it was a beneficial arrangement. But here we see again Wilde mocking something serious and revealing it to be trivial. And indeed he does this throughout the play. Social visits and dinner arrangements are extremely important to characters such as Algernon and Lady Bracknell, while other things such as bunburying and duplicity and deception were dismissed very lightly. The play is therefore more interested in celebrating appearances and behaviour, really, or the appearance of behaviour, rather than morality or sincerity. So the play is really a farce that revolves around this pun regarding the name of Earnest. Here it's Gwendolen speaking, saying the only really safe name is Earnest, and this is a sentiment that is also echoed a little later in Act 2 by Cecily. So basically the plot of the play, two male characters invent fictional identities in order to escape their social obligations. At the same time, two women, Gwendolen and Cecily, fall in love with the name of Earnest. Now the whole comedy is that the main characters are hardly being earnest. They appear earnest, but they are not. But they must become more earnest by the end of the play. Here's Gwendolen speaking. Here we see the pun in action. Your Christian name, Earnest, has an irresistible fascination. The simplicity of your character makes you exquisitely incomprehensible to me. So she's taken in by his appearance, or by his name in this case. And this kind of reveals the superficiality or superficial basis upon which society was based. And Wilde is very humorously suggesting that it's all about style, appearance, or the name of Earnest that matters rather than truth or reality.